Welcome to another Coffee with Developers. I'm here with Katja Traumner from NDT Global, and we're going to talk about a lot of stuff today. But first of all, why don't you introduce yourself, what you do for NDT Global and what NDT Global is about?
Yes, so thanks a lot for the opportunity, Chris, to be here with you today. So my name is Katja Traumner. I am the head of the data science and AI team at NDT Global. NDT Global is a pipeline inspection service provider. So sounds really niche to say so, quite special. So what we are doing is we are searching in pipelines for corrosion and for cracks, which are a safety issue, as you can imagine, for the pipeline vendors. And NDT itself provides a full service. So that means we are building tools. So they base on ultrasound technology. We are running the tools. So maybe you can imagine it's a pretty, let's say, challenging environment. So we speak about high pressure oil and gas pipelines, partly going subsea from the big oil platforms. And these measurement tools, they run a couple of 100 kilometers through the pipelines. And they are measuring with resolution below a millimeter what happens inside the pipelines and at 360 degrees.
Are these ROVs, or are these just are these little robots that go through the pipeline, or what? How do you measure that? Is it just the pressure of the device itself, or how do you do that?
No, it's ultrasound signals. So we are sending ultrasound pulses against the wall, and they are coupling either via the liquid or via the gas into the wall. And then from the signals which are coming back to the sensors, you can see if you have less wall thickness, you can see if you have a crack or other, let's say, anomalies in the pipeline. So it's more or less a direct measurement. It's not indirect via pressure or something like that.
Physical pipelines, not software pipelines, for all people confused right now.
Oh, yes, it's really an oil and gas pipeline. So it's the dirty side of the world.
How do you become head of data science and AI? Well, what did you study? How do you get into it?
Yeah, so originally I'm a physicist. So I did a PhD in climate research. So the other side of the world, to say so. After my PhD, I had a junior research group, or young investigator group, as it's called at this time. So I got the opportunity pretty early to build up an own group, which was really nice getting this one. And after a couple of years at university, I guess everybody knows, you start to make the decision which direction to go. And I decided to go into the industry in this moment, starting as a researcher in the pipeline industry, and then really step by step, more or less changed from working absolutely hands-on into the more management line, and always working with algorithms. The company in the last 10 years, we are changing more and more to the new generation algorithms, to the ML algorithms that we are using. And so that's where I am today. So I'm leading a really cool team of people who are doing the developments.
Which brings me to the Tower of Babel that is AI these days. I mean, we're talking about AI, machine learning, data science, reinforcement learning. Where do you see yourself in that? It must feel weird, having worked in that space for a long time, and then seeing AI out of a sudden explode, and every news headline being about the future of thinking computers is here. Where do you draw the line of the things that you want to do and the things that you feel are just science fiction-y right now, or headline based?
Yeah, so it's okay. We are always having this buzzword bingo, right? we are over there. In general, just to repeat again, I guess everybody knows, but AI is every system that can mimic a cognitive function that you have out there, right? It can understand, maybe it can talk, it can recommend you something, very general. What is interesting for us is machine learning, and machine learning is a sub-world of this AI world, to say so. And machine learning simply means that a system learns its rules by itself from data. And the more data you give it to him, the better generally it will get. And these machine learning algorithms, in that sense are really interesting for us, because in the past we developed algorithms and we defined the rules, right? We had the data, we defined the rules. And now we are getting a new tool, and I really just consider it as a tool that learns or is able to start learning these rules by itself. And with that, it can beat us partly in thinking, because it can learn more complex rules like we might see at this moment. And that's how my team is using it, right? So we are using it as a tool, like we also use other kind of algorithms. So not in a super fancy, and we're also not treating it as a special thing. It's another kind of possibility that you can use to extract information from data. And you mentioned the reinforcement learning, so that's something that we are not doing. So reinforcement learning is one kind of learning paradigm, right, that you could use for machine learning. Mainly we are using supervised learning because we have extreme huge data sets. So we have millions of kilometers of pipelines, millions of anomalies in the pipelines, which are all labeled. So that's a really good start for a supervised machine learning. And that's how we are using it from our side.
It's interesting because when the whole hype started, I worked for Microsoft and we talked about like a lot of like what is the use cases for machine learning and like big data learning kind of things. And we had like MRI scans from hospitals where basically we said like, okay, now the doctors can find the anomalies in the MRI scan data rather than having to go through thousands of pictures by hand. And I guess in your case, it's actually millions of like sound bites. You can't go by hand and you just find the outliers and you find the problems. And that's where a machine model makes most sense.
Yeah, it's like that, but it's really vice versa, because in the past, our analysts were really going meter by meter over the pipelines. And that's what we are going to replace by the more intelligent algorithms. So we are still keeping the people in the line, because what we learned is we cannot 100% trust only the machine learning algorithms. The data is often too complex. And often there's, let's say, a meta information underneath that you cannot all feed to the model, not at the moment. So we are going to a semi-automatized approach. So we are using AI to filter, more or less, go for the interesting ones, as you said, bring the humans to the interesting pictures. So very similar, you are bringing the doctors to the interesting pictures, and we are also bringing our people to the interesting pictures.
Yeah, it's like teachers to a degree as well. I mean, we waste the time of teachers by telling the students everything rather than just letting students learn something and help them out when they get stuck. You know, that's a much more efficient way of doing it. When I'm a web developer, and what I loved about a web development was it was open for everybody out there. When I started in 1996, there was no degree in it. Nobody knew what it was. Everybody just joked about it. That internet thing is never going to be a thing. And that way, in my whole career, I always found people of all walks of life, of all shapes and sizes, because everybody came in sideways. Everybody came in because of interest. I kind of feel that data science sounds very academic, but there is a much more diversity in that space than in the engineering world that I've seen in the past. Do you feel like that there is a way with these two worlds mingling that we can actually amp up the diversity of our market? Or in other words, is data science less intimidating than software development?
So let's say my experience is that we are really diverse. And here I have the same experience like you had. So when I started about 10 years ago, we had a team and people were coming from all directions, right? You had one from the robotic side, you have one from the telecommunication side, you have people from the meteorology side, the theoretical physics side, and the teams are still set up like that. Yes, we are observing people who are coming with a data science degree. So it's a kind of trend that we are having. But I think it's important to at least have a mixture in these teams. So really getting people from other domains in the teams. And more, it's also important that these people really understand the data. So we have many applications, and our applications in special, you cannot just fire an algorithm on this data. You need to understand where this data is coming from. And to understand this data, often you need more than just a data science degree. you need a physicist, at least 1 or 2 in the teams who are able to come over those things. And so these kind of mixed profiles, this is something I would say it's not just my industry, it's the whole market. So that's something which is getting more and more interesting. So
domain knowledge is something that tied in with technology, and as technology becomes more and more like generated or like possible to use out-of-the-box solutions, your domain knowledge is actually more interesting than just knowing the algorithms or having to write generic code yourself.
Yeah. So, and that's the same, for the developers. I would say it's the same kind of trend, because generic code and generic algorithms, we are already there. So the AI can replace these kind of generic works, I'm sure. So that's why they are also getting out the rules. They are writing the code, and it's far okay as a start. But let's say coming over this 80-90%, so coming in this a bit like an excellent level, here we're gonna need the human developers still on top, but then we also need this kind of profiles which have a deep understanding in many directions.
So one topic you wanted to cover was being a woman in tech. There's this huge one, of course. But what made you want to talk about this? Inequalities, positive experiences? Like, what does it feel like these days to be a woman in tech? Is there any change that you see lately, or is this something that you just? I mean, it feels like such a weird generic question to ask, but so let's talk about it a bit.
Yeah. So. I talked to my colleagues the last days when we were preparing for this interview, and I said, I'm going to come in this interview. And I got the feedback that we all a bit frightened that we have a bit of turn in this. So in the past, we got the woman in the tech, right? So there were all these initiatives and trying to build up the things. But in the last 1 or 2 years, it seems to drop down again, which worries me a bit. And the situation is still, at least in my personal experience, in many tech meetings, I am the only woman in the room. And sometimes if there's a second woman in the room, it's the one taking the notes, which is even more frustrating, as if I would just be the only woman in the room in that sense. So we still have an extreme gap, obviously. And it doesn't feel as if these situation gets better at the moment. And I think that's why it's important that we keep on talking and we keep on showing up, and we say, hey, it's possible. We have the woman in these roles. So go for these career paths.
It's weird because I mean, a few of the like women in tech, women who codes, kind of like companies went bankrupt last year because they basically didn't get the coverage or didn't get the support they did. I mean, right now, the new US government and also the German government is cutting a lot of these like DEI initiatives and basically saying like, oh, it's not necessary anymore. And like, it feels really like a step backwards to me, because if we build products for people out there, people are people, and they're women and men and in between and everything. So our development teams also, or our product teams, have to be as diverse. I always found, like, especially in Microsoft and also in Mozilla back then, when we had teams that were mixed and not just like one group, we built products so much better because we built it for the people out there. We represented what we wanted to reach. And that's something that is really depressing to see, that a lot of these things are being cut right now. And I wonder what we could do about this. So as an organizer of events, for example, I mean, we always like, we're over the last few years, we always had to get a diverse setup of speakers. And it sometimes was a really uphill battle to find people in that actually are not just a white dude that wants to talk. And I found that in data science, and especially in the Python days that we had, it was much, much easier. So it seems like that world has a lot of like more diversity than, like, you say you have a Java day or a .NET day or something. Like, there are certain technologies that actually are interesting for more diverse candidates. And what I found interesting is that in the last few years, I was always being attacked from people like, why don't you have more diversity in your lineup? Those voices start to go away. It seems like people are not expecting it right now. And that's something I really, really want to, I mean, it was super annoying for me, but at the same time, I think it's very necessary. So it's I want to give this as an opportunity to tell everybody, like, please, if you want to speak on stage, and I don't, please be just reach out and tell us where you are, and tell us what how we can reach you, because I want to keep this up, because it's not really making any sense. Did you encounter that as well? Do you do any public speaking at the moment, or is it something that you're basically too busy to do?
No, so well, we are here, right? So at least we are trying to reach out. We are also trying to reach out in conferences and so on. We are also trying to support special women events at conferences, all through from the technical side. Yeah, so we have to be representative over there, also on the technical meetings, and not just at a women meeting. So we are going in both directions. We talked in the beginning, right? And you asked it a bit in this kind of token person. So sometimes people were just invited because they are a woman. And in general, in the tech field, I never had this impression when I was asked to give a presentation or to give a talk, that it's just because I'm a woman. But outside the tech field, I had this quite often, right? Starting at university, and then they are sending you to events, attracting students. And then they are bringing you, look, it's a woman, and she even has a kid. Wow, so it's possible. So in that cases, yeah, I was a bit put in the front light. But to be honest, I never had a problem with that, because I think, yeah, if we stop stepping up, yeah, we are losing these kind of role models, and I think the role models is the most important one here. So it needs to be seen that we have women in these different fields. That's why I'm also a fan of things like a woman quote in specific areas. I know there's all these discussions, and I have them with a lot of colleagues telling me, hey, do you want to really be the one having this job because just you are a woman? And then I have to say, in general, yes, because this will make us breaking these structures. So and breaking up these, let's say, a bit old paradigms. And maybe it's something we need at the moment to first reach this level of more or less equality, to push really hard, and maybe, yes, taking the woman, maybe she's a little bit worse than the other candidate, but just to get the women in the team, to build up this kind of view. And then I think it will start to get self-rolling. So it won't be a problem any longer. But first we need to overcome this kind of barriers. And so
I mean, that's how you reach it. You make it become a normal thing, but you have to actually get it sorted first. You know, like, you have to make sure. I mean, you cannot enforce things like that, but you have to. I mean, the other thing when you said like this, would the female candidate might not be as good as the male candidate. I mean, there's so many factors in like hiring and finding people, and like the CV might look good, the interview might be great, but then the person in the job is basically horrible. Whereas like the other candidate wasn't as good in the CV. Yeah, I mean, for me, for web development, it was always like, if somebody has a really, really well designed and great website, he's probably not a good web developer because he has too much time for his own page rather than like doing things for customers. So that was always the thing that I was talking about there. Yeah, that feeling of like when I get asked to speak at an event, I never have to think about like, is it because I'm a white guy? But as you said, like, even if that's a thing, I think it's something that take the opportunity and be there is the right way of doing it.
Yes, so that's my opinion. Yeah, go really there and step up. And in a couple of years, it will no longer be because you are the exotic thing and the part that is missing, but then it will get normal.
So what can companies do to be more inviting for female or women techies? Like, how can we, what barriers have you found that that stopped you from starting at a company because of that reason? Or is it something that, and what do you do to actually make it better?
So in general, yeah, it's the normal things, right? That we are all praying since many, many years. Allow the flexibility, allow people to have flexible working times, to get the family and the kids under a hood. So for me, this was pretty important when I started here in this company. So my kid was 4 or 5 years old, so I needed to think how we can tackle the whole situation. And it sounds easy, but that's the point at the very end. So give that chance. But let's say in the past, and especially with all this Corona, many companies made this turn. Unfortunately, coming back to our topic from before, now they seem to go back into the old structures in many companies. And I think this won't help that we are having here. So because I think that's one of the most attractive things, getting the family and the job combined at this point. And on the other hand, from a company's point of view, try to get the equality in the teams, right? So if I'm applying for a job and I'm there for the interview and I'm asking, okay, what about the mixture in your team? And I say, you would be the only woman working here. So I might think twice if I want to have this job or not at this point. So in that case, it's a factor.
It feels like such a 1950s thing whenever there's a discussion about like having the family, that it's the woman's job to do that. Like, I mean, I like it in Scandinavian countries where like the pregnancy leave when somebody is pregnant is the same for the husband and the wife, or the husband and the husband, the wife and the wife, the husband, not possible. But anyway, when my partner gets pregnant, I will be away for the company as well. That whole argument of like, I don't want to hire a woman because she might get pregnant and then she's gone for 1.5 years. That's something we need to fix. But I think you cannot fix that on a company level. You have to do that, or you could probably, but I don't know if many people would go for that.
Yeah, but it's again being so showing that it's possible, right? So if you are a team lead or a manager or whatever, the best thing you could do is take that opportunity and go half a year away, because all your employees gonna see this and they will see, yes, okay, if my boss is doing it, I can also do it. So it's this kind of giving a good example, so providing the examples, and that's something a company can foster for sure. So getting away from these traditional role models. But at the very end, you are right. So we need to break this kind of traditional things and show, but it's for me, it's always providing examples. So like in my family, my mom was always working. So for me, it was never a question to stay home. It was simply not not in my way of thinking, or that someone would have stopped me going for math and for physics. So like I did the math with my grandpa. It was never a problem that I'm a girl or if I'm a boy or something like that. So being raised in this absolute equality, I've never questioned things. And I see that the colleagues here that are working, so we are getting more and more these turns that we have equal distributions between men and women, that men also step out, that women come back early and not just after 2 years. So we are starting to see these things, and the next generations hopefully will having the same kind of experience like I have, so that there is no question of going in those directions.
There is a rather unappetizing move in the tech world in terms of language, where people get like very aggressive, like 10 times developer. Like, I mean, I'm not going to say names here because then we can't promote this on YouTube any longer. But there's company owners out there that basically just see like, oh, you gotta work 70 hours a week or something, or even a more impossible task. And people are like, jumping onto that, seeing like themselves as an alpha developer that basically is like doing like lots of work and is more effective than the others. I'm always incredibly bored with competition like that. I'm like, it's like, oh, so I'm a better developer than you are, and I'm like, well done, then fine, I don't care. But do you think there is a way that companies can show themselves and avoid language that puts people off? Like, how can we turn that around? Like, it's
following a bit the rules, right? Not allow this kind of work. So we are, I say in my team, I actively speak up if I see situations like that, because if you have someone working 70 hours a week as a manager, this is absolutely not sustainable and in no sense. So you're gonna burn this developer in 2 or 3 years. So it's not gonna help you, and it burns the rest of your team because they always see, oh damn, he again was more successful than me, so they are getting more frustrated. It might be a little trend, but maybe I'm too optimistic, but I will see that people will, so it will not work. So that's not possible. And it might also be a little bit a trend at the moment with seeing this new kind of technology wave rolling over us, right? So having this technology wave of the AI, and this wave, it will change our way of working. It's absolutely sure that it's going to change. And that means the way, the kind of jobs will change. And maybe it's just this kind of intermediate period, the kind of transition period that we are having at the moment, where people not sure what happens, so they run in all kind of crazy directions. So this is one that we are seeing here. But having these kind of transitions in the jobs, I guess the next 5-10 years, yes, it might get interesting and hard for us, especially having developers, especially also for algorithm developers, because this kind of intelligence from the artificial intelligence will hit us. But I'm sure we will learn to live, and we will adapt again, right? So we go up and down, and then it will get smooth again at one point. And we had these kind of transitions in the societies in the past. It's just the next one, which is coming for us, right? So there's no one out there who's building a road with a shovel. And it's the same for us here, right? So it's for the developers. So there might no need to write a test any longer because someone else is going to do it. So we need to change we are changing the way of we are working. And will be a rough time, and I think we all need to be aware, and it will be hard because they are changing our behaviors, our usages. But we can also not fight. We will not win a fight against this kind of evolution. So so what we can do as leaders, take care of your people, right? So and try not to do these kind of crazy competition or things like that in your teams. It's simply not, it will simply not carry your teams. It's not possible.
I mean, there's an interesting thing, like a company like yours that actually has a product to fix and basically is not visible at all to the outside world as much as the others. Like working for Microsoft, working for Facebook, working for those people, everybody thinks that's like, oh, that would be so cool to do. But you're also in the public eye the whole time, and you're in competition with like the people that go to a place like that to have that name on a CV. Do you think there is a happiness in finding a company like yours to actually just do the work and then go home? Do you think that like it seems like a lot of developers these days, or young developers, think like they have to do software development but also change the world at the same time, not necessarily for the good, but just be visible there. But do you think there is happiness in like just doing things that other people rely on?
The small companies, I think you can find happiness in this company, and I think maybe it's easier to find happiness than with the big players, because when you're going into a company like ours, with having not even 1,000 people around the globe, relatively small developer teams that we're having here with 20-30 people in the developer teams, you are seeing immediately what you are doing. So it's not like with Microsoft, where you're a little screw in an extreme big business. The things that you are doing here, this will have an immediate consequence. The things which were rolled out by you, which were designed by you, are immediately used to do something. And you'll get immediate feedback, because the people who are working with your product, they are sitting in the office beside you. So they will come at your door and shout at you if you are not doing well. And they will also come at your door and say, hey, that's a really great job. And having this kind of influence, this can make you really happy. And it's not that you are not changing the world, right? So it's the kind of business what we are doing here. So if you see a big incident with one of the pipelines and you lose a couple of 10,000 liters of oil somewhere, so you are the one who maybe find the right trick to prevent, because you make things visible, and you, as a software developer, you enable the people to identify this kind of features. So it's not that you are working, let's say, a bit not with this world-changing impact. Maybe you are changing it even more, or at least more directly than if you go to these extreme big players.
In Google, when you start on the first day, you're a noogler. You get a hat with like a helicopter on it and like different colors. In your company, do you get a Super Mario outfit, or is it just like anything
No.
related?
You are immediately part of a team, and we're not fucked because you are the new one.
So that will be fun, like basically everybody dressing up as Super Mario and fixing pipelines and these kind of things. So that'd be great. Okay, well, we are a half an hour, so basically we realized that people nowadays have an attention span of about 12 seconds, so we don't want to overdo these. This was exciting. This was wonderful. Thank you so much for talking about this, and it's great to see somebody with like a PhD in bloody physics to actually get into a company and actually mix those two worlds. And it's great to see to have somebody show that there's companies you might not heard of, but that actually have an impact by having physical things and bringing data and software and physical things together. Maybe that's something to look out for. So as a final statement, like what is your message for people out there, diverse people out there, to get into our world? Like what do you want people to do that they don't do at the moment?
Apply for the jobs we are offering. So step out. Don't be afraid. Don't hear when someone is pushing you down or things like that. So if you like those things, do it. Be open. Be open for learning, right? So that's really important. And in businesses like us, try out if this is gonna help you.
Cool. Well, thanks very much, Katja. That was Katja Traumner from NED Global. Thank you for watching. Don't click subscribe and like, because we don't do that kind of stuff. But yeah, it was great to hear from you. And now we're going to edit this, and it's going to go live soon. So thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Chris.